Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco. Sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
Three very different accidents.
It felt like a bomb had just gone off.
Each with deadly consequences. Desperate to go on living,
So I knew I had to hold on for at least a week before they would even miss us.
the victims share a desire to return to loved ones.
I was surviving for my wife and granddaughter and kids.
They draw on arsenals of knowledge and withstand excruciating pain, but never give up. Why do some perish while others make it home? This is a special episode about what it takes to be a survivor. In the wild, when things go bad, they go bad fast. Without warning, your life can hang by a thread. Adventurer and survivor Craig DeMartino fought back from his own wilderness disaster to reclaim his life. Now Craig meets other courageous outdoorsmen who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive.
Hi, I'm Craig DeMartino. You never think it can happen to you, but it can and does. As an experienced rock climber, I knew the risks, but I never thought that I would suffer a catastrophic fall that should have ended my life. From that day forward, I became part of a very unique group, survivors. The outdoorsmen in this show all felt the same way I did that day. But like me, something unexpected happened to them, and they were suddenly thrust into harm's way.
Justin Harris and his younger brother Jeremy enjoyed hiking in the spectacular canyons of south central Utah. For this trip, they chose Baptist Draw and the mouth of Chute Canyon.
Go down around there.
Early on a Saturday morning in November of 2003, they rappelled down to the canyon floor
Whoa, you all right, buddy? Yep, I'm good.
and began hiking along a narrow chute filled with boulders and sudden drops.
How's it look?
It's not easy hiking at all. It's very difficult and tough to scramble through those areas.
The temperature was dropping fast, and they knew they needed to be out by nightfall. They began to rush.
We came to another drop. This one was probably 25 feet.
What do you think? Should we drop a line?
No, we don't have time. We gotta down climb it. Come on.
So I took the lead and climbed up over the top. And as I put my back towards the rock and started looking for handholds and places to put my feet and move down this rock, I lost my footing.
Jeremy grabbed Justin's hand, but felt him slip away. The crack of a breaking bone could be heard throughout the canyon.
It felt like a bomb had just gone off in my head.
I've never heard anyone scream in agony like that in my life.
Jeremy knew Justin was seriously hurt, but until he could get to him, he had no idea his brother's injury was life-threatening. July 2009. Gabe Neal and his son Christian were enjoying a day of fishing on Harrisonville Lake outside of Kansas City, Missouri.
It's just a warm one today, huh, bud?
The afternoon was sunny and hot, but suddenly the weather changed dramatically.
You know, we didn't see any lightning, but we did start to hear thunder.
Some dark ones rumbling in, moving in quick too.
And it just got black. I mean, it was like on top of us. I know I had read about, you know, pop-up storms and how they kind of just come out of nowhere, and it did. Last thing I remember, I was getting ready to cast. And then nothing. I don't know, it was just black.
In September of 2013, Adrian Canops was on a hunting trip in the Misty Fjords region of southern Alaska with his best friend Garrett Hagen.
Oh, Garrett, this is just paradise up there. It's beautiful. It is wonderful.
3 days into their 10-day trip, Garrett shot a bear.
Nice bear. See you in a bit.
They decided that Garrett would haul the heavy bear meat out to their boat in the small skiff and then return for Adrian.
I waited. Throughout the next half an hour, I kept scoping out the boat, trying to spot something. But I never spotted anything. After about an hour, I knew he had died.
As the tide came in, the water rose, creating channels of deep water. Adrian was now stranded on a treacherous tidal flat in the Alaskan wilderness with no gear or provisions. Even worse, he was surrounded by bears and wolves. A downed tree looked like his only safe harbor.
I sat up there and the tide was still coming in.
There was no other place he could go. He was trapped, facing a slow death from cold and starvation.
None of these guys expected a day in the wilderness to end with their lives in deadly jeopardy. I talked with each of them about what they decided to do next, the first steps that were critical in their survival.
Brought to you by John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer.
My body was crushed in a fall, and I had to endure helplessness, excruciating pain, and the fear that I would never walk again. Everyone's trauma is different, but what I've learned is that survivors are similar in the way they can put panic aside and act with a clear head.
Justin Harris lost his footing while hiking in a remote Utah canyon.
Justin!
The resulting fall severely injured his leg. His brother Jeremy realized immediately that he had to control Justin's panic and calm his brother down.
You know he's broken it.
Oh yeah, he's screaming in agony. I've never heard anyone wail like that. He's just screaming and screaming and screaming. And so I just asked him, do you really believe in God? And he said, yeah, I do. I said, will you say a prayer then? And he said a prayer.
Please protect my brother. And myself.
For some reason, everything kind of calmed down.
Right.
And then I climbed down.
Talk to me, brother.
It's broken. I felt it snap.
Okay, I'm gonna look, okay?
Yeah.
And we kind of assessed the situation.
Jeremy pulled up Justin's pant leg.
How's that look?
It's pretty swollen, man.
His left shin bone had multiple breaks and was rapidly swelling up.
You're gonna have to sit tight.
What neither brother knew was that the swelling was a sign of internal bleeding, which was life-threatening.
Can you carry me out?
There's no way I can carry you out of here.
What are we gonna do?
They weighed their options and charted the only logical course.
Still light out. I'll climb through, I'll get help, and I'll bring help back.
We made the decision that I was going to leave him and go get help.
Think happy thoughts, and you'll be fine.
In my mind, we may never see each other again.
That was a real possibility.
Yeah.
It was just another father-son day of fishing for Gabe and Christian Neal, when in a split second, a bolt of lightning came out of the sky and hit them.
Never saw a flash. It's just immediately getting hit with a sledgehammer and being backwards in the water. I thought the boat blew up.
Andy Flippin witnessed the strike from a nearby boat.
It sounded like a mortar round in Iraq going off. I turned around, looked over my shoulder, and I see a big puff of blue smoke coming from the boat and no fishermen.
First thing I remember was raindrops on my face. As I kind of came to a little more, thinking to myself, why am I in the back of the boat?
Christian was flat out on the floor of the boat. His father was sinking under the water. Shocked by the electrical charge, Gabe couldn't move his legs. He was drowning.
You're in the water and your legs aren't working. Were you feeling like this is it? Like, I'm not gonna get back up to the top, I'm gonna die here?
It was kind of strange. I never blacked out. Is this the way it ends? And then immediately, I went to, God, if I've done anything wrong, please forgive me.
Despite his desperate situation, his mind cleared and he focused on the most important thought.
And then it was like you flipped a switch and where's Christian? We were standing side by side. Where's my son?
Adrian Canops was alone and stranded on a mudflat in a remote corner of southeast Alaska. The tree trunk he had climbed onto not only provided a windbreak, but was a safe distance from the predator-filled tree line. That first night, he had no idea that this fallen tree would become his sanctuary for 6 more days.
There was my perch right there. So you get up here and there's a little place to stick half your butt and one shoulder into. But when the winds are really strong, see the wind, like even now on the breeze, it's coming through here like a funnel.
Right.
Hits me right in the side of the head. So you bunch up, down like this and like this, and you just sit.
The freezing rain continued into the next day, but Adrian stayed calm and used the storm to his advantage.
There was a pocket in the tree, just a little bowl. I couldn't get my hands or face in it, but like could cut a piece of dried marsh grass. I used it as a straw, and I drank out of that, the rainwater.
Adrian ventured to the tree line during the short couple of hours during low tide, and only in daylight. He determined that nighttime in those trees was far too dangerous.
Every morning when I was there, I would look. You'd always see the wolf tracks. And when you get out into the sand, there is a pretty major bear trail. I figured, this is covered by tide. Twice a day, I'm seeing these tracks. I cannot come to the trees for shelter.
They were all on their own. Little did they know, their darkest hours were yet to come. In those first few hours, and for some days, a timely rescue starts to look pretty hopeless. But survivors never give up, no matter what. It's like another gear kicks in. It's a combination of faith and love of family.
It was the love of a brother that kept Jeremy Harris forging through 4 miles of dark, icy cold canyon in search of an exit and help for his badly injured brother.
All that was in my mind was save my brother. I gotta save my brother. And so it was really hard to take a break, but I had to warm up. It was so cold that I had to lay right in to the fire, and I fell asleep, and I woke up and I was on fire.
It was a frightening moment, but perhaps it happened for a reason. The adrenaline rush fueled Jeremy to press onward. Justin Harris made it through the long, cold night. Sunday morning brought warmer temperatures and a bit of relief. But as the hours went by, hope for a prompt rescue faded.
About the middle of the day, it started getting colder again. That's when I started to think about Jeremy, and I started to wonder if maybe he had had an accident or if he had died that night in the canyon.
Gabe Neal was paralyzed and drowning underwater, ready to give up. But he then realized he had to survive for the sake of his son.
Where's Christian? We were standing side by side. Where's my son? And at that point is when I started really digging with my arms to get to the top of the water.
The trolling motor was still pushing the boat toward shore. Gabe couldn't pull himself on board.
And when I looked over the gunwale of the boat, Christian was still smoking. And that was, it was pretty hard moment. Still didn't at that moment, I didn't really understand what happened. I mean, why is he smoking? I heard him grunt, and the grunt probably was the best sound a dad could hear.
Adrian Canops had held on to a fallen tree for 5 days in the worst weather imaginable.
It was like there was a wall, and it was 5-mile-an-hour wind turned into a 70-mile-an-hour wind, like that. Whoa, you know, your clothes are just fluttering back. I was semi-hypothermic. I was like, man, I may not get out of here.
But Adrian was driven by his desire to live and to be able to tell his family, and especially Garrett's, what had happened to him.
I was surviving for my wife and granddaughter and kids, to make sure that the families knew the right story, and make sure that if I died right here, God would look at me and be happy.
So in the middle of the vicious storm, thinking Thursday night might be his last, Adrian worked out a way to leave behind a record of their ordeal.
I took one of Garrett's guns, and I took my hunting knife. I proceeded to carve a message into the gun. In essence, it said that Garrett was from Craig, Alaska, and he died on September 15th, 2013, taking his big bear to the boat. I thought that would give him the story of what happened of our hunt and how he died. And then I said, Adrian Canops, stuck on tidal flat, cold, wet, no food. I had it high up so that people searching a rescue, passing boaters, maybe would see this gun, even if it's 3 years from now. It was like I put a message in a bottle and threw it into the river. You know, it was just, there's hope right there.
For the love of life, for the love of family, and for the love of God, these men put up the fight of their lives to get back home. When we returned, the final hours. Whether they had survived a day or over a week, these men pushed their minds, bodies, and hearts to the very limit. Their rescue and return to their families were both joyous and bittersweet.
Justin Harris's long nightmare ended.
Oh, I see him.
When rescuers found him and lifted him 500 feet up from the canyon floor. He was only rescued because his younger brother Jeremy never gave up, trying to find his way out of a maze of canyon pour-offs while fighting off hypothermia.
After I got to the hospital, I was able to see Jeremy. It was pretty amazing to look in his eyes and tell him thank you.
I'm serious. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for staying alive.
Thank you for doing everything that you had to do and go through to get out of there, and for not giving up.
Jeremy had saved Justin, but the doctors couldn't save Justin's leg.
We got to the point where there was no blood flow anymore.
Yeah.
And it was obvious that the leg was deteriorating fast. I did some real soul searching, and as a husband, as a provider, as a father, and I realized that all the things that matter weren't going to change. I'm still here.
It's not Justin.
I'd give the other one to stay alive.
Right.
It's just amazing to have that second chance and still be here.
Adrian Knopf's best friend had perished, and Adrian was barely clinging to his own life through 6 days of torrid rainstorms. Throughout his ordeal, prayer gave him some comfort.
What would be when you felt like, I'm at the bottom, this is it?
It'd have to be Sunday morning. I was ready to collapse.
Right.
I'm sure looking back, it was sleep deprivation, you know, a whole week with only a few hours of sleep. And I was like, you know, this is probably your last morning. Said my last prayer. That's the last thing I remember.
What's your next memory?
The noise of a helicopter. Right there, over the top of that river, there's a Coast Guard helicopter. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And I'm looking at it, and they can't see me.
After a long week of much prayer, Adrian had one more message for God to hear.
I could tell they were leaving. I said, now's your opportunity.
Just turn your head. Turn your head.
Just make him turn his head.
The pilots were calling out that we were going to move on to our next search area. I just kind of happened to turn my head over my left shoulder one last time. Just happened to see something that didn't seem natural. I realized that, oh, that's not a tree, that's a survivor.
All of a sudden, that chopper just stops on a dime. Door flings open and
I stepped out of the aircraft and walked over to Adrian. He had told me that he had been sitting there for 7 days waiting for help. All right, well, we're here to get you out of here.
It was the most fantastic helicopter ride I've ever had.
Gabe Neal kept going under like a lead weight.
But I didn't have enough strength to hold on to the boat. Just total weakness at that point. Went under a couple times and then just couldn't hold on anymore. But in the background, I could hear somebody screaming, and I knew it wasn't myself, and I knew it wasn't Christian.
The screaming was coming from Andy Flippin's boat.
We were only about 50 yards away when it happened. We got up there, and my dad jumped out. My girlfriend's screaming her head off, scared. I got her on the phone to 911. Got out of our boat and into their boat. My dad helped hold Gabe in position.
The Flippin family worked tirelessly to save the Neals. And miraculously, both Gabe and Christian made it through without permanent damage.
Trying to get better, back out fishing before you know it.
Today, Christian's exploded graphite fishing pole serves as a terrifying reminder of just how lucky they were to survive.
Was there ever a point where you thought, this could be something that kills me?
I guess I was okay with it. If I needed to die and the good Lord wanted to bring me home then that's his decision, and I was okay with it.
These are just a few of the incredible survivors I met while working on this series. And I have to say, I'm constantly amazed each time I meet one and hear their story. Survivors are a unique group of individuals, each one humble to be alive and grateful to have won their incredible fight to survive.